She thought she was alone, but fate played a trick. Adjusting her bra without noticing her reflection in the glass, she saw the Millionaire CEO watching, and his wicked smile said it all. If you enjoy love stories, romance, subscribe to this channel, leave your comment. Every day we post videos like this. Continuing. Rhiannon Olsen nervously adjusted her bra strap that insisted on slipping beneath her white blouse. The strong London wind tousled her curly hair as she used the reflection of a parked black Mercedes as a makeshift mirror. With each gust, her heart quickened a little more. She couldn't afford to look sloppy today of all days, not when she had finally secured an interview at Quartz Developments, one of the most prestigious construction companies in the country. Just 5 more minutes, she murmured to herself, trying to calm her breathing as she ran her fingers through her rebellious curls. Her worn bag hung from her shoulder, holding her resume printed on special paper, an investment that had cost almost an entire day's work as a waitress. 24 years old with a civil engineering degree from a public university, the first in her family to have a diploma, and now trying to make the leap that would change her story. The company building loomed imposingly before her, all glass and steel, a monument to the kind of life she only knew from afar. A soft hum made her freeze. The car's tinted window slowly descended, revealing a man's face. Not just any man. The kind of man who looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine, a defined jawline, piercing gaze, an impeccable suit that certainly cost more than 3 months of her rent. "Need help with that?" he asked, a teasing smile on his lips as his eyes swept over Rhiannon's body without any discretion. His tone was amused, almost mocking. She felt her face flush instantly. She swallowed hard, backing away from the car as if she'd received a shock. 24 years of life in the East End of London hadn't prepared her to respond to men in luxury cars who caught her in moments of vulnerability. No. Sorry, she stammered, clutching her bag tightly as if that object could protect her from the embarrassment. The man merely widened his smile, revealing perfectly aligned teeth. "Just kidding, but I suggest using the lobby mirror. It's more discreet than my car." And with that, the window went up again, leaving only her distorted reflection, her face now burning. Rhiannon took 3 deep breaths before she could move her legs. Her mother always said that opportunities don't knock twice for people like them. She couldn't afford to give up because of an embarrassing moment. She straightened her posture, lifted her chin, and walked determinedly towards the building entrance. She was used to dealing with arrogant men. Growing up with 3 brothers in Whitechapel had prepared her for that, at least. The lobby was a world apart. Polished marble, strategically placed ornamental plants, air conditioning at the perfect temperature. Rhiannon immediately felt out of place, as if every inch of her skin screamed that she didn't belong there. The receptionist, a blonde woman with impeccably straight hair, scrutinized her from head to toe before she even opened her mouth. "Can I help you?" "I have an interview at 10 o'clock. Rhiannon Olsen." The woman consulted the computer with long, red-nailed fingers. Yes, intern for the projects department." Her tone didn't hide her surprise, as if Rhiannon didn't fit the expected profile. 18th floor, you can sit over there, someone will come get you." Rhiannon walked to the waiting area, feeling the weight of the gazes following her. She chose a secluded armchair and tried to breathe normally. Her hands were sweating so much that she had to discreetly dry them on the black pencil skirt she had bought at a department store, her best attempt to look professional on her limited budget. It was then that she saw him again. The man from the car entered the lobby with the confidence of someone who owned the world. Unlike her, he belonged in that environment. It was obvious by the way everyone seemed to react to his presence. The receptionist straightened her posture. Security guards nodded deferentially. Executives interrupted conversations to greet him. He held a cup of coffee and walked towards her. No, it wasn't possible. He couldn't be coming to talk to her, but he was. In her nervousness, Rhiannon stood up abruptly, bumping into the coffee table. The sudden movement caused the man to stumble slightly, spilling some coffee on his Italian suit. Time stood still. The entire lobby seemed to plunge into a sepulchral silence. Rhiannon felt the blood drain from her face. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I didn't see you. I can clean it, let me..." The words tumbled out as she frantically searched for a tissue in her bag. To her surprise, a muffled laugh broke the tension. "Mrs. Lettuce, you have something stuck in your tooth." Rhiannon instinctively brought her hand to her mouth, mortified, as he continued, "I'm just kidding. There's nothing in your tooth. I just wanted to see your reaction." The man smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You must be the engineering candidate. Interesting resume." He knew who she was. How? Why? Rhiannon felt her stomach drop. If he was someone important in the company, she had just ruined any chance she had. "I'm Gareth Matthews, CEO of Quartz." He extended his hand, completely ignoring the coffee stain on his suit. "I'll take you to the interview room myself." The private elevator ascended silently, reflecting the image of the two on its mirrored walls. He, the epitome of sophistication and power. She, a visibly uncomfortable intruder. Gareth maintained an enigmatic smile on his lips, as if sharing a private joke. "So, Rhiannon Olsen, first in your family to go to university. Full scholarship. 9.7 average in advanced structures." He recited information from her resume without consulting any papers. "Impressive for someone who worked throughout their degree." "Thank you, Mr. Matthews," she replied, trying to maintain her composure. She wouldn't ask how or why the company's CEO knew so much about her. This wasn't the time to question. "Gareth," he corrected, "here at Quartz, we try to maintain a less formal environment among our talents." The elevator arrived at the interview floor with a soft chime. When the doors opened, Rhiannon expected to see a meeting room, perhaps with a panel of recruiters. Instead, there was only a spacious office, clearly his office, with a panoramic view of the city. "I thought there would be other people," she commented hesitantly. "Normally, yes, but your resume intrigued me. I wanted to meet you personally." Gareth gestured to a chair in front of his desk. "Besides, after our encounter downstairs, I feel like I've already broken the ice. Wouldn't you agree?" What should have been a formal interview quickly turned into a duel. He asked incisive questions, testing not only her technical knowledge but her reactions under pressure. His dark, brown eyes never left hers for a second, as if trying to unravel some hidden mystery. "Why Quartz?" he finally asked, after almost an hour of questioning. Rhiannon hesitated. There was the rehearsed answer, because it was an innovative company, a market leader with challenging projects. But something in his gaze challenged her to be authentic. "Because you build in Whitechapel," she replied, surprising herself. "I saw the community center project. It's the first truly beautiful building in my neighborhood. Something that doesn't look like it was made with leftovers, you know? For the first time, someone built something in my neighborhood as if the people there deserved beauty too." Silence. Gareth's face was unreadable. Rhiannon bit her lip, regretting her honesty. She should have given the standard answer. "Interesting," he said finally. "Most candidates talk about our skyscrapers in Canary Wharf or the business complexes. No one has mentioned Whitechapel before." He leaned forward. "Do you know who designed that community center?" "No, sir." "I did." A different smile appeared on his face, less calculated, almost genuine. "It was my first project after I took over the company. The board thought it was a waste of resources. Why spend on design in a deprived neighborhood, they said." Gareth paused, studying her. "You just passed the interview, Rhiannon Olsen." She blinked, confused. "Passed? But you didn't even ask about my technical skills, about software, about—" "Your resume tells me all that. What I needed to know was who Rhiannon Olsen is, and now I know." He stood up, indicating that the interview was over. "Monday, 8 in the morning, 6-month internship, possibility of full-time employment. HR will send the details to your email." Stunned, Rhiannon stood up. "Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Matthews." "Gareth," he corrected again, opening the door for her. "And Rhiannon, next time use the bathroom mirrors to get ready. They're more reliable than random car windows." The following weeks were a roller coaster of emotions. Rhiannon oscillated between euphoria for the opportunity and terror of not being up to the task. Quartz was another planet, meetings in English, lunches that cost more than her weekly food budget, colleagues who spoke of international travel as casually as going to the shops. Her small flat in Bethnal Green, shared with her friend Jessica, seemed increasingly distant from the reality she lived during the day. At night, lying in her simple bed, Rhiannon sometimes wondered if she could maintain the facade of belonging to that world. At work, Gareth was a constant and disconcerting presence. Unlike other CEOs who barely knew their employees, he seemed to be everywhere. And, for some reason Rhiannon couldn't comprehend, he always found reasons to include her in meetings, ask her opinion on projects, or simply appear in the engineering department when she was there. "He's watching you," commented Letitia, another intern, daughter of one of the directors. "I've never seen Gareth pay so much attention to an intern before. It's strange." Rhiannon tried to ignore the comment, but it was impossible not to notice the glances, not just from Gareth but from all the employees. Some curious, others clearly suspicious. Rumors began to circulate discreetly through the corridors. On a particularly difficult day, after a meeting where she had to present ideas for a new project, Rhiannon found Gareth waiting for her in the corridor. "Dinner," he said without preamble. "Tonight, 8 o'clock. We need to discuss your participation in the Docklands project." It wasn't an invitation, it was almost an order. Rhiannon felt a chill in her stomach. Dinner, alone with the CEO, would only fuel the rumors. On the other hand, refusing could harm her position in the company. "Is it really necessary, sir? We could discuss it here during office hours." "It is necessary," he confirmed, offering no further explanation. "I'll send a car to pick you up." Before she could protest, Gareth had already walked away, leaving her with a sense of apprehension and, although she didn't want to admit it, a pang of excitement that deeply unsettled her. At 8 sharp, a driver awaited her at the door of her building. Jessica had lent her a simple, black dress, elegant enough not to embarrass her. Still, Rhiannon felt like an imposter, trying to pass herself off as someone she wasn't. The restaurant was not what she expected. No exclusive atmosphere in Knightsbridge or Chelsea. It was a small, cozy place in Notting Hill, with dim lighting and an intimate atmosphere. Gareth was already waiting for her, dressed surprisingly casually. Dark trousers and a white shirt with rolled-up sleeves, revealing strong forearms. "You look surprised," he commented as the sommelier poured wine into their glasses. "I expected something more formal." "Formal places are for impressing clients. This is where I come when I really want to talk to someone." He studied her for a moment, and Rhiannon felt exposed under that gaze. "You're not comfortable." It wasn't a question. Rhiannon took a deep breath. "With all due respect, Mr. Matthews." "Gareth." "Gareth. People are already talking about your attention, about me. I don't think this dinner will help dispel those rumors." He didn't seem surprised or bothered. "And that worries you? What others think?" "Of course it worries me. I'm the intern from the deprived area who barely managed to buy proper clothes to work there. Any slip up and I'll just be another girl who got the internship by sleeping with the boss." The words came out more bitterly than she intended. Gareth took a sip of wine, his eyes never leaving hers. "It's interesting that your mind went straight to that scenario." Rhiannon blushed intensely. "That's not what I meant." "I know exactly what you meant." He leaned forward. "You are talented, Rhiannon, extremely talented. The project you presented today for the Docklands complex has the kind of innovation I haven't seen in years at the company. That's why we're here." "Only for that?" The question hung between them, laden with implications neither was ready to admit. Gareth smiled, that enigmatic smile that never fully revealed what he was thinking. What else would it be? During dinner, to her surprise, Rhiannon discovered a side of Gareth Matthews she hadn't imagined existed. He spoke about his childhood in the Yorkshire Dales, the son of a bricklayer who dreamed of building buildings that don't fall down, about how he had fought to transform his father-in-law's small business into one of the largest construction companies in the country, about the mistakes and successes along the way. "You think I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth, don't you?" he asked as they waited for dessert. "Everyone assumes that. And you weren't?" "My father worked on construction sites. My mother was a domestic cleaner. I grew up in Barnsley, in the metropolitan area of Sheffield, not much different from Whitechapel." Rhiannon looked at him with new eyes, trying to process this information that completely changed her perception of him. "How did you get here?" he completed. "Scholarship to a private school, then civil engineering at a federal university. I married the daughter of the owner of the construction company where I interned." A shadow passed over his eyes. Helena was passionate about sustainable architecture, the community center in Whitechapel. It was her dream. Was it? Helena died 5 years ago. Cancer. The information came without hesitation, his tone devoid of emotion, as if he were talking about the weather. The community center was the last tribute I could pay to her. The silence that followed was heavy, laden with an intimacy Rhiannon hadn't anticipated for that night. Suddenly, Gareth Matthews was no longer just the arrogant CEO with teasing smiles. He was a man with scars, with a story that surprisingly had points of contact with hers. "I'm sorry," she said finally, not knowing what else to say. "Don't be." He made a gesture to dismiss the subject. "I didn't bring you here to talk about my past. I brought you because I want you to lead the Docklands project. Your vision for that space is exactly what we need." Rhiannon almost choked on her wine. "What? But I'm just an intern, I know. That's why you'll officially be a special collaborator on the project, working directly with me. The engineering director won't like it, but he'll survive." She stared at him, feeling a mixture of emotions: gratitude for the opportunity, distrust about his true intentions, and something else, something dangerous that made her heart beat faster when their eyes met. "Why me?" Gareth studied her for a long moment before answering. "Because you see beauty where others see only functionality. Because you understand that building isn't just stacking concrete, it's creating spaces that transform lives." He paused. "And because you remind me of her, Helena, the same passion, the same integrity." The comparison caught her off guard. Was it a compliment or an impossible expectation to live up to? Rhiannon couldn't say. When the driver dropped her off at home that night, her mind was buzzing with contradictory thoughts. The professional opportunity was extraordinary, the kind of chance that would change her career forever. But there was also that electric current in the air when they were close, that unresolved tension they both pretended didn't exist. In the dark of her room, while Jessica snored softly in the next bed, Rhiannon admitted to herself she was dangerously attracted to Gareth Matthews, and the most frightening thing, she suspected the feeling was mutual. What she didn't know yet was that this dinner would be just the beginning of a dangerous dance between them, a dance that would take her to places she never imagined, awaken desires she had never faced, and force her to choose between the career she had fought so hard for and a feeling that grew every day, forbidden and irresistible like the most tempting fruit in the garden. The following weeks turned Rhiannon's life into a whirlwind of new experiences. The Docklands project, an ambitious revitalization of an old industrial space, transforming it into a multi-use complex with integrated affordable housing, consumed almost all her time. She worked late almost every day, often being the last to leave the office. Weekends became a distant memory. Jessica, her friend and flatmate, began to joke that she had adopted a ghost as a roommate. "Seriously, Rhiannon, you need to slow down. They're exploiting you." But Rhiannon didn't feel exploited. She felt alive. For the first time, her ideas were being heard, valued. It was as if she had finally found her place, even if that place was in the meeting rooms of Quartz, so distant from the reality she came from. And there was Gareth. Always present, always challenging, always looking at her in that way that made her stomach churn. They worked together almost daily, sometimes late into the night. In recent weeks, she had learned more about him than she ever imagined possible. His quirks, like spinning his pen between his fingers when he was thinking, his preferences, black coffee, no sugar, his moments of contemplative silence before a complex problem. One particularly tense late afternoon, while reviewing deadlines that seemed impossible to meet, Rhiannon surprised him by letting out a frustrated laugh. "What's wrong?" Gareth asked, looking up from the documents he was analyzing. "Nothing. It's just that—" She hesitated, cautious about crossing an invisible line. "The budget department is clearly trying to sabotage the project. These numbers don't make sense." Gareth studied her for a moment. Why do you think that? Because the head of the budget is Mr. Finch's brother-in-law, she replied without mincing words, referring to the engineering director who made no secret of his displeasure that she, a mere intern, was leading a project of that magnitude. And because these numbers, she pushed a spreadsheet towards him, are deliberately inflated, the real cost of these materials is at least 30% lower. And how do you know that? Because I grew up watching my father work on construction sites. I know the real price of these things. She held his gaze, defiant. They're trying to make the project seem financially unfeasible. Gareth stared at her for a long time, an indecipherable expression on his face. Then, to her surprise, he smiled. Not his usual controlled smile, but something genuine that lit up his face. You know what I like most about you, Rhiannon? Your ability to see through layers of corporate nonsense. He stood up, approaching dangerously close. Let's do this. Tomorrow's Saturday. We'll go to some suppliers, you and I. Without the purchasing department as an intermediary, we'll see the real prices. On Saturday? She asked, suddenly aware of how close they were. Problem? No, it's just that... She hesitated. It doesn't seem very orthodox. He chuckled. Nothing about you at Quartz is orthodox, Rhiannon Olsen. That's why we're making real progress. His hand lightly touched her arm, a brief contact that sent an electric current through her body. I'll pick you up at 9. Saturday arrived with a typical London drizzle. Rhiannon woke up anxious, changing clothes 3 times before settling on jeans, a white t-shirt and a light jacket. Practical enough for visiting material depots, but not so casual as to look sloppy. When Gareth's car parked in front of her simple building in Bethnal Green, she felt a mix of embarrassment and defensiveness. It was the first time he had come there, to her world. The contrast between the gleaming Mercedes and the peeling facade of the building couldn't have been starker. It's not exactly what you're used to, she commented as she got into the car, trying to sound nonchalant. I lived in a worse place when I was at university, he replied simply, without judgment in his voice. The important thing is where we're going, not where we came from. The first stop was at a large construction materials supplier in East London. Rhiannon watched fascinated as Gareth transformed in that environment. His suit had given way to casual clothes, and his polished corporate English subtly acquired the Yorkshire accent of his origin when he spoke with the vendors. He knew the name of every material, asked technical questions, negotiated like someone who deeply understood that world. You seem different here, she commented as they walked among piles of eco-friendly bricks. Different how? More real. Less CEO, more engineer. He smiled. That smile he rarely showed in the office. Perhaps because here I can just be Gareth. Not the president of Quartz, not Helena's widower, not the man who appears in business magazines. His eyes met hers. Just me. Something changed between them at that moment, a connection that went beyond the professional, beyond the undeniable physical attraction they had both been ignoring. For the first time, Rhiannon saw the man behind the corporate facade and liked what she saw. The day passed quickly as they visited suppliers, collected real quotes and talked with site managers. In the late afternoon, as the rain intensified, Gareth suggested coffee before they returned. The place he chose was small and unpretentious, so different from the fine restaurants where they had dined before. Sitting at a corner table with steaming cups in front of them, the conversation flowed naturally to personal topics. You never talk about your family, Rhiannon observed. There's not much to say. My parents died a few years ago. I don't have siblings. I'm sorry. She hesitated. And children. You and Helena never... A shadow crossed his face. We tried. For years. It didn't happen. He took a sip of coffee. And you? Large family, I imagine. 3 older brothers, all in construction, like my father. She smiled fondly. My mother is a cleaner. She still works today, even though I insist she doesn't need to anymore. Pride. How? It's pride. She doesn't want to be supported by her daughter. She wants to show she still has value. He studied her. Your family must be very proud of you. They are, but they don't fully understand. Either. For them, civil engineering means construction sites, hard hats, laborers, not meetings in air-conditioned rooms with imported coffee. She fiddled with the rim of her cup. Sometimes I feel like I'm living between two worlds, without truly belonging to either of them. Gareth's gaze deepened. I know that feeling very well. The moment was interrupted by his phone. A call he answered quickly, his expression changing to something more serious. When he hung up, he looked worried. Problems? Rhiannon asked. My mother. You said your parents... Mother-in-law, he corrected. Helena's mother. I still call her mother. He sighed. She fell at home. It doesn't seem serious, but I need to go there. Of course, I'll get an Uber from here, don't worry. Don't be ridiculous. He was already on his feet, grabbing his keys. I'll drop you home and then I'll go there. Or, Rhiannon heard herself saying before she could think better, you can take me with you. 4 hands help more than 2. The proposal surprised her as much as him. For a moment, Gareth seemed to consider refusing, but then he nodded. Actually, I think she'd like to meet you. During the drive to Knightsbridge, the affluent neighborhood where Gareth's mother-in-law lived, Rhiannon began to regret her impulsive offer. What was she thinking? Meeting his family. That crossed all the professional boundaries they had, at least officially, maintained until then. The house was exactly what she expected, an old elegant mansion with immaculate gardens and an aura of discreet wealth. Rhiannon immediately felt out of place, like on her first day at Quartz, but multiplied by 10. Don't be intimidated, Gareth commented, noticing her discomfort as they parked. Cecilia is eccentric, but she has a good heart. The door was opened by a woman in her 70s, perfectly coiffed white hair, wearing a casual dress that probably cost more than Rhiannon's monthly rent. Finally, the woman exclaimed, showing no sign of having fallen. I thought I'd have to fake a fracture to get you out of that office on a Saturday. Her sharp eyes immediately turned to Rhiannon. And you must be the famous engineer who is revolutionizing the way my son-in-law works. Rhiannon shot a surprised glance at Gareth, who looked vaguely embarrassed. Rhiannon Olsen, she introduced herself, extending her hand. It's a pleasure, Mrs. Cecilia, dear. Just Cecilia. Mrs. makes me feel even older, than I already am. She took Rhiannon's hand, but instead of shaking it, pulled her inside. Come, tea is ready. And no, Gareth, I didn't fall. It was just a pretext to finally meet this young woman you talk so much about. The afternoon turned into one of the most surreal of Rhiannon's life. Sitting in the elegant living room of the Matthews home, with fine porcelain and delicacies she had never tasted, she heard Cecilia tell embarrassing stories about Gareth, talk about Helena with a mixture of sadness and celebration, and ask direct questions about Rhiannon's life and ambitions. So you're from Whitechapel? Cecilia asked at one point. Do you know the community centre Gareth built there? It's what made me want to work at Quartz, Rhiannon admitted. The idea that beauty and functionality can exist anywhere, not just in wealthy neighbourhoods. Cecilia smiled, a smile that strongly resembled Gareth's when he was genuinely pleased. Helena would have loved to hear that. It's exactly what she believed. The old lady looked at Gareth with something that seemed like approval. You have a good eye for talent, my boy, you always have. When they finally said goodbye, it was already night. Cecilia hugged Rhiannon with surprising strength for a woman her age. Come back soon, dear, she whispered. It's been a long time since I've seen Gareth so alive. In the car, the silence between them was heavy with unspoken emotions. Rhiannon felt they had crossed an important line. She had entered his personal life, met his family, heard stories that further humanized the man who, initially, seemed only an arrogant CEO. She's incredible, Rhiannon commented finally. Your mother-in-law. More than a mother-in-law. After I lost my parents, Cecilia became my family. He kept his eyes on the road. She's right, you know. About? About me talking about you. He glanced at her briefly before returning his attention to the traffic. Probably more than I should. Rhiannon's heart raced. Gareth, I know, it's complicated. I'm your boss. The age difference, company policies. He sighed. But I also know that what's happening between us isn't just professional, and I suspect you know it too. The confession hung between them, transforming the air inside the car into something dense, almost electric. Rhiannon knew her answer could change everything, for better or for worse. "I know," she admitted finally, her voice almost a whisper. "And it scares me. You're not the only one scared here." He parked in front of her building, turning off the engine. In the silence that followed, it seemed the whole world had stopped breathing with them. When Gareth turned to face her, the intensity in his eyes made Rhiannon tremble. What do we do now? She wanted to be rational, professional, sensible. She wanted to say they needed to keep their distance, focus on the project, forget this dangerous attraction. Instead, she heard herself saying, "Do you want to come up for coffee?" It wasn't really an invitation for coffee. They both knew that. For a long moment, Gareth just looked at her, a visible conflict on his face. Then, to her surprise and perhaps a little disappointment, he shook his head negatively. "Not like this, Rhiannon. Not here. Not today." His voice was soft but firm. "Whatever is happening between us, it deserves more than an impulse after a confusing day." She felt her face burn with shame. She had obviously misinterpreted, had offered herself like a, "Hey." His hand found her chin, gently turning her face to him. "It's not rejection. It's respect. For you, for us, for what we can be." Rhiannon nodded, not trusting her voice at that moment. Before she could compose herself, Gareth leaned in and, with infinite delicacy, touched his lips to hers in a brief kiss, almost chaste but loaded with promises. "Good night, Rhiannon Olsen." He pulled away, a soft smile on his lips. "Get some rest. Monday we have a war to fight against the budget department." On Monday, the dynamic between them had subtly shifted, nothing obvious to external observers, but present in every exchanged glance, every moment their hands accidentally touched over documents, every shared smile when no one else was looking. The Docklands project advanced rapidly, exceeding expectations. The combination of Rhiannon's innovative vision with Gareth's experience and influence proved unbeatable. Even the engineering director, Mr. Finch, who had initially been the biggest opponent, began to show reluctant respect for the work they were doing. One particularly hectic morning, while reviewing the final modifications before the presentation to the board, Rhiannon received a message from Cecilia, Gareth's mother-in-law. "Lunch Sunday? I have something important to discuss with you. Just us two." Rhiannon hesitated. Since that first visit, she had met Cecilia only twice more, always with Gareth present. A solo meeting with the woman was simultaneously intriguing and intimidating. "Of course, what time?" she finally replied. Sunday arrived with a clear sky and a pleasant breeze, one of those rare London days when the city seemed to breathe. Rhiannon chose a simple but elegant dress, a gift Gareth had insisted on giving her the week before. "I don't need presents," she had protested. "It's not a present," he had replied with an enigmatic smile. "It's an investment in your professional wardrobe." Now, standing before Cecilia's mansion, Rhiannon adjusted the dress nervously. Gareth didn't know about this meeting. She had decided not to mention it, too curious about what the matriarch of the Matthews family wanted to discuss. Cecilia greeted her with a warm hug that still surprised her, considering the social difference between them. "You are absolutely radiant, my dear. Love does that to people." Rhiannon felt her face flush. "I don't know what. Please, spare me the denial. I'm 70 years old. I'm not blind." Cecilia led her to the back garden, where an elegant table was set for two. "I've known my son-in-law for over 20 years. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. Not even Helena, and believe me, he loved her deeply." The comment caught Rhiannon off guard. She sat down, trying to process the information. "You don't disapprove?" "Disapprove?" Cecilia chuckled as she poured tea into delicate cups. "My dear, I've waited 5 years to see that man live again. Since Helena died, he turned into a machine. Work, work, and more work, until you appeared." "I'm not that important," Rhiannon protested softly. "Oh, but you are." Cecilia's gaze became penetrating. "And that's why we need to talk. Gareth is a complicated man, with a past few people know about. I thought you should know some things as before it's too late." Rhiannon's stomach dropped. So this was it. Some terrible secret that would explain why someone like him was interested in someone like her. Some perversion, some lie. What do you mean? Cecilia took a sip of tea as if organizing her thoughts. Gareth was born in Barnsley, he must have told you that. What he might not have mentioned is that his father wasn't just any bricklayer. He was a violent alcoholic who turned his childhood into hell. Rhiannon felt a tightness in her chest. Gareth had spoken little about his parents, always in vague terms. At 16, Cecilia continued, he ran away from home after a particularly brutal beating. He came to London with what he could carry in a backpack. He worked on construction sites during the day and studied at night. When he met Helena, he was in his second year of civil engineering, living in a boarding house room and eating one meal a day to save money. He never mentioned he hates to appear vulnerable, he hates people feeling sorry for him. Cecilia put down her cup. Helena brought him into our family and he flourished. My husband saw something special in him, not just his daughter's boyfriend, but a successor to the company he had built. And Helena, what was she like? Rhiannon asked, realizing that despite hearing the name frequently, she knew little about the woman who had been Gareth's wife. A melancholic smile appeared on Cecilia's face. Brilliant, passionate, stubborn as a mule. She laughed at the memory. A visionary architect, but with her feet firmly planted on the ground, she and Gareth were complementary. She dreamed, he executed. She flew, he provided the firm ground to land. Rhiannon felt a pang of jealousy, immediately followed by guilt. How could she be jealous of a woman who was no longer alive? When the cancer came, Cecilia continued, her voice now softer, it was devastating, fast and relentless. In 6 months, she was gone. And Gareth, he completely shut down. He immersed himself in work, as if it were a mission to fulfill every dream Helena had, every project she imagined. The community centre in Whitechapel, Rhiannon murmured. Exactly, the first of many. In the last 5 years, he transformed Quartz from an ordinary commercial construction company into a company with a social purpose. All for her. Cecilia leaned in, taking Rhiannon's hands in hers. And then you appeared. With your passion, your authenticity, your vision that in ways you might not even realize echoes hers. Rhiannon felt tears forming. You think he's only with me because I remind him of her? No, dear. I'm saying exactly the opposite. Cecilia's eyes shone with surprising intensity. I'm saying he's with you because you made him remember who he really is. Not just Helena's widower, not just the CEO, of Quartz, but Gareth, the boy from Barnsley who dreamed of building things that would last. The lunch continued with Cecilia sharing more stories, some amusing, others revealing. When Rhiannon finally said goodbye, hours later, she felt as if she had gained not only a deeper understanding of Gareth, but also an unexpected ally. One last thing, Cecilia said as she walked her to the door. The company board, the Docklands project presentation, it's next week, isn't it? Yes, Friday. Be prepared. Cecilia's gaze became serious. Mr. Finch hasn't given up. He's just waiting for the right moment to strike. How do you know that? A cunning smile appeared on the lady's lips. Dear, I am the largest individual shareholder of Quartz. Do you think I don't know what happens behind the scenes? Just be prepared. The next day at the office, Rhiannon couldn't stop thinking about the conversation with Cecilia. She watched Gareth from afar, seeing him with new eyes, not just as the powerful and confident man everyone saw, but as someone who had faced adversities she could barely imagine. You're acting strange today, he commented when they finally managed a moment alone in the project room. I was with Cecilia yesterday. His expression changed immediately. She contacted you. Why? She wanted to get to know me better. We talked about you. Gareth tensed. What exactly did she tell you? Everything. Barnsley, your father, how you met Helena. Rhiannon hesitated. Why did you never tell me about it? He looked away, clearly uncomfortable. It's not something I'm proud of, or that I like to remember. Gareth. She touched his arm lightly. Nothing Cecilia told me changes how I feel about you. It only makes me admire you even more. Something vulnerable and rare crossed his face, a relief mixed with gratitude. For a moment, Rhiannon glimpsed the boy from Barnsley behind the CEO's facade. Before he could reply, however, the door opened and they quickly moved apart. The days leading up to the board presentation were frantic. Rhiannon practically lived at the office, refining every detail of the project. Gareth, even busy with other company responsibilities, found time to review her work, offer suggestions, and prepare the political ground for approval. On the eve of the presentation, while working late, he surprised her with a proposal. "Let's run away." Rhiannon looked up from the blueprints she was reviewing. "What?" "After the presentation, a weekend, just you and me." He approached, a different sparkle in his eyes. "I know a guest house by the sea, on the Isle of Wight. Isolated, discreet. We can just be ourselves there." The idea was tempting. Since they had started their relationship, they were always looking over their shoulder, always attentive to who might see, who might know. "We need to submit the detailed project on Monday," she reminded him, ever practical. "We'll work on the beach then." He smiled, that smile that still made her heart race. "They say sea air stimulates creativity," she laughed, yielding. "All right, but only if the board approves the project tomorrow." "They will approve it." His confidence was unshakable. "Your work is too brilliant to be denied." On the morning of the presentation, Rhiannon woke up to a message from Gareth. "Today is your day. Show them who Rhiannon Olsen is." She dressed carefully, opting for the dress he had given her, professional, elegant, but with personality. Jessica helped her with her hair, taming her rebellious curls into a sophisticated bun. "You're unrecognizable," her friend commented. "Who would have thought that shy girl from Whitechapel would turn into this powerful woman?" Rhiannon smiled, nervous but confident. "I'm still the same person." "No, you're not." Jessica studied her. "And that's not necessarily a bad thing. You've grown, Rhiannon. You've become the woman you were always meant to be." At the office, the tension was palpable. The presentation was scheduled for 11 o'clock, in the boardroom on the top floor, a territory Rhiannon had only visited once, briefly. Gareth met her in the elevator, maintaining a professional distance despite his complicit smile. "Nervous?" "Terrified," she admitted in a low voice. "Don't be. You know this project better than anyone. Believe in yourself as I believe in you." When the elevator doors opened on the top floor, Rhiannon took a deep breath. The moment had arrived. They walked side by side to the imposing meeting room, where 8 men and 2 women, Quartz's board of directors, awaited. Mr. Finch was already there, seated to the right of the board chairman, a cold smile on his lips. Something in his gaze reminded Rhiannon of Cecilia's warning. Be prepared. The presentation began formally. Gareth introduced the Docklands project as the next evolution of Quartz in the sustainable and socially responsible development market. Then he handed the floor to Rhiannon. For 40 minutes she presented every aspect of the project, from the innovative architectural concept to the technical engineering details, including the economic viability studies she herself had refined. She spoke passionately about how the project would not only transform a degraded urban space, but would create a replicable model of affordable housing integrated with high-standard commercial spaces. When she finished, there was a moment of evaluative silence that made her hold her breath. Then, the board chairman, a man in his 60s, nodded in approval. "Impressive, Miss Olsen. I rarely see such well-structured presentations even from experienced directors." Rhiannon felt a warmth of pride spread through her chest. "Thank you, sir. However," Mr. Finch intervened, "there are some issues we need to discuss." He turned to the board. "As engineering director, I have serious concerns about the structural viability of some elements of this project, and more importantly, about the methodology used in its development." The change in atmosphere was instantaneous. Rhiannon felt a shiver. "What concerns would those be, Mr. Finch?" Gareth asked, his voice controlled but tense. The engineering director smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "To begin with, this project was developed almost entirely by an intern with no practical experience, with minimal supervision from the technical department." "My supervision," Gareth corrected. "Exactly, and therein lies my greatest concern." Mr. Finch looked directly at Rhiannon, not disguising his disdain. Miss Olsen undeniably has talent, but her sudden ascent from newly arrived intern to leader of a project of this magnitude is, at the very least, unusual, especially considering her proximity to the CEO. A heavy silence fell over the room. Rhiannon felt as if the floor had disappeared beneath her feet. "What exactly are you implying, Mr. Finch?" Gareth's voice was dangerously calm. "I'm not implying anything. I'm presenting facts." Mr. Finch turned to the board. "Miss Olsen and Mr. Matthews have been seen together outside the professional environment on multiple occasions. Dinners, visits to Mrs. Cecilia Matthews' residence, entering and exiting his residential building at inappropriate hours." He paused theatrically. "I believe your professional judgment may be compromised by personal interests." Rhiannon felt the blood drain from her face. She looked at Gareth, who seemed to be making a superhuman effort to maintain his composure. "This is an unfounded personal attack and completely irrelevant to the quality of the project," Gareth replied firmly. "I disagree." Mr. Finch smiled. "It's extremely relevant if we are considering investing millions in a project conceived by an intern who gained her position through unconventional means." The insinuation was too clear to be ignored. Rhiannon felt anger replace the initial shock. Before Gareth could defend her, she stood up. "With all due respect, Mr. Finch, if you have doubts about the structural viability of the project, you should have raised those points during departmental reviews, which you consistently refused to attend." Her voice was firm without a tremor. "As for your insinuation about how I obtained this position, I suggest you examine the records of all meetings, reviews, and documented modifications over the past 3 months. Every decision on this project was based on data, tests, and analyses, not on any personal relationships." She turned to the board. "Ladies and gentlemen, I will not deny that I developed a friendship with Mr. Matthews during this project. He is a valuable mentor, as he has been to many young professionals in the company, but my work speaks for itself. If, after technically evaluating the merit of the Docklands project, you decide it is not viable, I will accept that decision professionally. But I ask that you judge the project, not corridor gossip." The silence that followed was broken by an unexpected sound: applause. It didn't come from Gareth, but from one of the board members, a woman in her 50s whom Rhiannon recognized as one of the most respected architects in the country. "Well said, Miss Olsen," she smiled. "As someone who has faced my share of similar insinuations during my career, I appreciate your composure. And as someone who has thoroughly reviewed your project before this meeting, I can assure the board that the work is exceptionally solid." Mr. Finch seemed to have been caught off guard by this support. "Councillor Miller, with all due respect—" "Respect," she interrupted him, "is exactly what was lacking in your approach, Mr. Finch. Attacking the character of a young professional instead of technically criticizing her work is, at best, unprofessional." The board chairman cleared his throat, regaining control of the meeting. "I believe we have heard enough. We will proceed to vote on the project, solely based on its technical and commercial merit." The following minutes were the longest in Rhiannon's life. The board voted one by one, some after asking additional technical questions, which she answered with renewed confidence. When the last vote was counted, the chairman announced, "By 8 votes in favor and 2 against, the Docklands project is approved for development." Rhiannon could barely contain her smile. Beside her, Gareth remained professional, but his eyes shone with pride. "Congratulations, Miss Olsen. Your work has exceeded all expectations." When the meeting concluded, Mr. Finch left quickly, without looking back. Councillor Miller approached Rhiannon, offering a business card. "Impressive work, Rhiannon. When your internship ends, I'd like to talk to you about opportunities at my architectural firm." "Thank you, Councillor Miller. It would be an honor." When they were finally alone in the meeting room, Gareth closed the door and pulled her into a tight embrace. "You were incredible," he whispered in her ear. "Absolutely incredible." Rhiannon buried her face in his chest, allowing herself finally to tremble with the adrenaline of the confrontation. "That was intense. Mr. Finch dug his own grave today. The board doesn't tolerate that kind of behavior." He pulled back just enough to look into her, eyes. I'm so proud of you, Rhiannon. The way you defended yourself, the way you defended your work. It wasn't just my work that was being attacked, she said softly. It was us. What we have. Gareth nodded, his gaze becoming more serious. This will keep happening, you know. No matter how discreet we are, there will always be someone like Mr. Finch. I know. She looked him directly in the eyes. The question is it worth it? For you, I mean. All this drama, these complications, because of me. Because of you? He smiled, holding her face in his hands. Rhiannon Olsen, you really don't understand, do you? You are the best thing that has happened in my life in the last 5 years. Is it worth it? Every second, every sideways glance, every rumor, every battle like today's. Her heart raced with the intensity of his words. Even if it affects the company, your reputation? Even so. He sighed. But I also don't want this to harm your career. What Councillor Miller offered, it's an incredible opportunity. Perhaps the best solution is— No, she interrupted him firmly. I'm not leaving Quartz. I'm not giving up on the Docklands project, and I'm definitely not giving up on you. Her chin lifted in determination. We'll find a way. Together. The weekend on the Isle of Wight was exactly what both of them needed. Away from corporate gazes, office politics, and the pressures of the city, Rhiannon and Gareth could finally simply be a normal, passionate couple, discovering each other without haste or fear. The guest house was small and isolated by the sea, with only 5 chalets scattered across a wooded plot. Theirs, the most secluded, had a private balcony overlooking the ocean. Mornings were spent working, he on company matters, she refining project details. Afternoons were for exploring the island, swimming, walking hand in hand, without worrying about who might see. On the last night, as they watched the sunset from the balcony, Gareth surprised Rhiannon with a proposal. I've been thinking about the situation at the company. She turned to face him, apprehensive. And? I'm going to create a social innovation department. Projects like Docklands, like the community centre in Whitechapel. Initiatives that combine architectural excellence with real social impact. He paused. I want you to lead it when your internship ends. Rhiannon blinked, surprised. Me? Lead a department? Gareth, I'll be newly graduated. So what? Your vision, your ability to innovate, your understanding of what truly matters in a project, they are exactly what we need. He took her hands. Besides, you would technically be under the direct supervision of the board, not mine. It would resolve the conflict of interest. She considered the proposal, dazzled by the possibility. That's— Wow, I'm speechless. There's more. He seemed suddenly nervous, something rare for Gareth Matthews. This is just the beginning, Rhiannon. I have big plans for Quartz, to transform how we build in this country. And I want you to be by my side every step of the way. I'm by your side, she assured him, confused by his anxiety. Not just professionally. He took a deep breath and, to her utter shock, knelt on the balcony. I know it's early. I know we have differences, obstacles, complications. I know the world will judge us, question us. But I also know, with absolute certainty, that I've never felt for anyone what I feel for you. Rhiannon put her hands to her mouth, tears starting to form. I'm not asking for tomorrow or for next month. I'm asking for when we're ready, when the world is ready. He took a small box from his pocket. Rhiannon Olsen, would you accept one day to be my wife? The ring was delicate, a sapphire surrounded by small diamonds in a contemporary design. It wasn't ostentatious, but it had personality, exactly like her. Gareth, she breathed, trying to find words. Are you sure? I am a man who found love when he least expected it. You are the most extraordinary woman I have ever met, he smiled. The rest are just details. Rhiannon pulled him up, holding his face in her hands. Yes, when we're ready, when the time is right, yes, 1,000 times, yes. The kiss that followed sealed more than a commitment. It sealed a promise of a future, of possibilities, of two worlds that against all odds had found a way to merge. 6 months later, at Rhiannon's graduation ceremony, Gareth was in the front row, alongside Cecilia and the entire Olsen family, her 3 big brothers, her emotional father in his best suit, her mother crying with pride. When she walked onto the stage to receive her diploma, the most enthusiastic applause came from that unlikely group, the family she had by blood and the family she had gained by love. The sapphire ring, which she had worn on a hidden chain under her dress during the internship, was now visible on her left hand, no longer a secret, but a declaration to the world. Quartz prospered under Gareth's visionary leadership and Rhiannon's creative innovation. The social innovation department she led became the company's most prestigious division, responsible for projects that redefined the concept of sustainable and inclusive construction across the country. Mr. Finch eventually left the company, unable to accept its new direction. Councillor Miller became Rhiannon's mentor, helping her navigate the challenges of being a young executive in a sector still dominated by older men. The wedding took place a year after graduation, an intimate ceremony in Cecilia's gardens. It wasn't an ostentatious event, as many would expect from the CEO of one of the country's largest construction companies. It was personal, authentic, a genuine celebration of 2 people who had found something rare in a world of appearances. "Remember our first meeting?" Gareth asked as they danced, under the stars, away from the guests' glances. "How could I forget? I was using your car as a mirror, desperately trying to look professional." She laughed, resting her head on his shoulder. "I knew at that moment that you would change my life." He held her tighter. "I had no idea how or how much, but I knew." "I thought you were an arrogant idiot," she confessed, teasing him. "And now I know you're an arrogant idiot who, by some miracle, loves me as much as I love him." She lifted her face to look into his eyes. "Who built space for me in his world, just as I'm building space for you in mine?" "They're not separate worlds anymore, Rhiannon." He kissed her forehead softly. "It's our world now. One we're building together, brick by brick." The next morning, as they packed for their honeymoon in Greece, Rhiannon found an envelope in her coat pocket, one she didn't remember putting there. Inside was a key and a card with Cecilia's elegant handwriting. "For the future, with all my love." When she questioned Gareth, he seemed as surprised as she was. Following the GPS coordinates on the back of the card, they drove to a plot of land in Hampstead, neither as exclusive as Chelsea, where Gareth lived, nor as simple as Bethnal Green, where Rhiannon had lived. An intermediate place, a new beginning. The plot was empty, just a large, fenced space waiting to take shape. "She gave us—" "An empty lot?" Rhiannon asked, confused. Gareth smiled, understanding his mother-in-law's gesture. "She gave us a blank canvas, to design our own home, exactly how we want it." Rhiannon's eyes sparkled with possibilities. She could already see in her mind the spaces taking shape. Not an ostentatious mansion, not a simple flat, but something unique, something that represented who they were together. "Where do we start?" she asked, intertwining her fingers with his. "At the beginning." He smiled, that smile that had changed her life on that first day on the pavement. "First we design the dream, then we build the reality. Isn't that how we always do it?" Rhiannon nodded, resting her head on his shoulder as they looked at the empty space that would soon become home. A space that, like their love, had begun with an improbable encounter, survived storms and opposition, and now transformed into something solid, lasting, real. A legacy that combined the best of 2 worlds that, against all odds, had become one.